back to Destination Fulfillment. I'm Janine.
And I'm Rodney.
And this is Life Coaching for Business Owners. Today, we're going to talk about a David versus Goliath mindset and small businesses going up against corporate giants.
So today is the 5th episode of Destination Fulfillment. And like Janine mentioned, we're going to be talking about the small mindset that a lot of business owners have, considering themselves David in like the David versus Goliath story. And the funny thing about that story is what most people don't realize is David did win in the end, and you can too. Mm-hmm. You know, small business owners, it seems impossible to compete with some of these major global corporate giants that are out there in the world today. I mean, in recent years, there's been a shift in consumerism regarding small business. You know, consumers want to support more small business, especially in this current climate with the pandemic going on. A lot of consumers are looking, they've seen firsthand, because in 2020, there was all of these shutdowns happening, and yet major businesses were still allowed to be open, and local communities completely cracked down on small businesses, forcing them to close. And it really brought into light in the media how politics often favors big business and makes things a little bit more difficult for small business. And it really brought this entire thing to light. So consumers really kind of stepped up, and they started looking to support small businesses because they have that homegrown feel, that those homegrown values and qualities, the responsibilities, and environmentally friendly, meaning, like in some examples, they're more environmentally friendly because they have a more minimal carbon footprint. They're not, shooting a bunch of carbon dioxide in the air by transporting, goods and materials from overseas in container ships and then putting it on a rail car and taking it from one of our marine ports and driving it by rail or by truck into where they're at. Oftentimes they are partnering with other small businesses in our local communities, sourcing materials domestically, partnering with somebody in their local community who happens to build a piece or a component of whatever it is they build.
And the market research is showing, this is back from my PR days in corporate world, but it shows that millennials and Gen Zs in particular are super supporters of small business and contributing to their local community. And so we're seeing a big play and a big mindset shift to supporting small businesses and supporting the quote-unquote little guy. So in the U.S., over 90% of businesses are small and medium size. And as of 2021, that means over 3.7 million small businesses are in the U.S. and account for 67% of new jobs annually. And the biggest consumers out there right now, which is millennials and Gen Z, are all for this stuff.
Yeah, so we really want to talk today about shifting your mindset from being the little guy and comparing yourself to these giants, and really help you focus more on what's going to help you grow, and more importantly, what's going to help you help your clients, because that's ultimately how we gain business and how we grow our business, is by helping our clients. It's not about who we're competing with, it's more about who we're helping. So let's get into this. You only need to compete with yourself. So really, when you sit there and you compete and you think about what somebody else is doing, you have that scarcity mindset that tells us that there are only a limited number of potential clients or jobs, and that we must fight for every dollar, cutting into our bottom line with gimmicks and sales to try to compete for clients because you think that the clients are limited. You don't realize how abundant and how vast that network can potentially become. And when you sit here and you're thinking small and you're thinking like there's only so many dollars that can come in, there's only so many clients, and when I have competition, this corporate giant, like how am I going to compete with that? You're always putting yourself in this fight mode all the time. And there's a lot of negative side effects to having that kind of mindset, that mentality. It's going to increase, and honestly, these are unnecessary. It's going to increase your stress and anxiety level. And I mean, that's completely unnecessary. I mean, if you could live your life with less stress and anxiety, would you?
Absolutely. That's why I quit my job.
I mean, not only stress and anxiety, but like aggression. Because you're always feeling like you have to be on the defensive. You're always fighting and competing, and that really shrinks how much you're willing to spread the wealth and really enjoy. And it causes you to have kind of an unwillingness to cooperate and share with others, because we believe that if we give someone something else, or allow maybe a competitor to have a particular client because ultimately they're not the right fit for you right now, you try not to do that because you believe that, this is going to take food off of your table. You're literally taking money out of your pocket, and that's not the case.
So scarcity mindset, you're stressed out, you're anxious, you're aggressive, you're always out for number one. What's the opposite of scarcity mindset?
Well, the opposite of having that scarcity mindset would be to have an abundance mindset. And that really needs to be the goal that we are all working towards, is to have a mindset of abundance. Because after all, the corporate Goliaths of the world are not our enemy. But usually they're a model for us to follow, an example of success. They can be a teacher or a mentor. They are someone who's been down the road from where we are to become a mega success. Believing we're going against the major corporation is a sign of envy and even greed. We go into business to solve a problem, to help others, our consumers. That's what we're doing. We are solving a problem that our consumer has, and that's why they come to us, and that's why they want to give us their money, and that's why they want us to help them to solve a problem. No matter what your business is, it's not going to be a lucrative business if you are not solving a problem for someone else. That's basic 101 of business. So I'm sorry, I lost my spot. But yeah, we go into business to solve a problem on top of making money and growing. And often a goal of going into business is to become uber successful so that we can leave a thriving business to our children one day, so that they may continue to grow our legacy. And that's ultimately how all of the mega corporate giants today really got their start.
Absolutely. Solving a problem, having a growth mindset, and basically realizing that there's more to business than making tons of money. But that's why we have vision and mission statements, and we are seeing a shift. And this was big when I worked in corporate responsibility. This was big with a lot of our clients who had really, really poor reputations with customers because they were all about the money and all about the money and all about the money, and the quality of their product or service went down. They were polluting the environment. They weren't seen as a reputable source in both media and within their communities. So, you know, when I worked in that industry, like, we had to work to sit down with the executives and be like, you need to reel it back a little bit. Like, why are you in business, you know? So that kind of goes into, you know, this mindset of abundance. So how do we develop that for small businesses?
Well, that's a great question. And before I answer, I'd just like to touch a little bit more on like the legacy that you're leaving behind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at the Fortune 500 businesses that are in the world today, those are those corporate giants that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Less than 1% of those are actually still being run by the people who founded the business.
True.
Now, a lot of this is convoluted and hard to see because there's so many mergers that have happened over the years. But if you really look into it to see who founded what is now a major corporation, I mean, it didn't start as a major corporation. And that person's not even alive anymore. This is probably, if their family is even still involved, this is a fourth or third or fourth, maybe even fifth generation of their family into this business.
Well, and the two that come to mind are two of the biggest, Walmart and the Walt Disney Company.
Mm-hmm.
Walmart was founded by, I can't think of his name.
Walton?
Walton, yeah.
I don't remember
his first name all of a sudden. But Walmart, well, the Walton family hasn't controlled Walmart for decades now.
Yep.
I think they sold off the business in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And the Walt Disney Company, the Disney family hasn't controlled Disney since at least the 90s.
Right.
But both of them started off as small businesses, right? Walt Disney and his brother wanted to create an animation studio.
All they started with was a cartoon.
Yeah, a cartoon. And Walmart, sorry, they're both the W's. Walmart started as a corner shop,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just a convenience store, general store. And the Walt Disney and the Walmart that we know today are not ran by either of those families anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but their names still live in infamy.
Yeah, and this is where we talk about, not comparing yourself to these corporate giants, and you're maybe 2 years into your business, but some of these other businesses have been around for 50, 60 years or more. So it's not even fair to yourself to compare yourself to a business that has been established and running and had its highs and its lows many times over for many decades.
Yep.
So to get back to your question, how do we develop a mindset of abundance? Let's start by defining what abundance really is. So the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines abundance as an ample quantity, to be plentiful, affluence, and wealth. So anything you're talking about, there's a lot of it. So whether that you're talking about customers or money, you have to go into it that there's a lot of it and there's more than enough to go around. The customers are plentiful. There is so much money and so many customers that we must share the wealth for the sake of our customers so that everyone can get serviced and everyone can get helped. And this is the truth, but many business owners struggle to believe it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us were raised in competitive sports, for example. We're raised to be competitive and to compete for first prize.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was raised in, I call it a football house, but from the time I was 5 years old, my brother and I were both in sports. And I played college volleyball through I played volleyball through college. And, and I was raised and molded to have this, competitive mindset. It was me versus you, my team versus your team. I'm out to win first prize.
Yeah, if you're not first, you're last kind of thing. And this mindset, I mean, it has been molded into our social structure over millennia. I mean, since the dawn of man, we've always been in competition. I mean, imagine when the first two men were standing around and they were trying to get the biggest stick. And they were fighting with each other.
My stick's bigger than yours.
Right? They have an entire planet of sticks. And it would take them many lifetimes to try and collect all these different sticks, and they're only doing it to compare themselves to the next person. But realistically, why are you doing that to yourself? I want you to have, I want what you have, and I will fight you for it, is this mentality that has gone through the ages, that's been the cause of many wars, people wanting what somebody else has, believing that resources are scarce. And in some ways, resources are scarce, but to live a full and successful life, one that you could be proud of, one that you could pass stories on to your children, doesn't require these types of mentality. In fact, it requires community. I mean, community at the root is to commune. That's the root of the word, communities, is to commune with one another, to come together in partnership and cooperate with one another for a collective success.
Yep, it's less my success is your loss, and it's more my success is your success. Imagine what we could do if we always thought of like my success as your success.
Right. We're all in this together
as we stand hand in hand. Okay, this isn't karaoke, but I just keep imagining, in the corporate world we have this. There's always this saying, especially when people are trying to talk to females in the corporate world, and it's like, instead of climbing the corporate ladder, you take 2 steps up on the rung and you reach down and help pull someone else up. So it's this partnership, and it's teamwork, essentially, is how I think of it.
Yeah, but we're told that you must win to be successful. But I mean, what is winning? What is success in business terms? I mean, success in the terms of business at its most basic is you're creating a product or providing a service that solves a problem for consumers and charging a fee that will generate a profit. Oftentimes, and this is big in marketing, oftentimes consumers don't even realize they have a problem. Consumers don't realize they're hungry until they see that ad for McDonald's. And that's a big one for solving the problem at this root of what business is. It's like restaurants have that biggest, like, they're meeting a need because we all need sustenance, right? Restaurants meet that need that we all have 2, 3, 4 times a day, depending on your dietary schedule. We all have to eat. That's one of our basic needs. That is a problem we have to have. We have to have food on our plates. And that's where so many people go into business and restaurants, is because that's one of our most basic needs, and that's what they know as a business formula is, I have to solve a need. So we want to solve a problem that the consumer has and charge a fee that's going to generate a profit. You should always strive to better yourself and your business at all times. Don't change just for the sake of change, but evolve your service or your product into newer, better versions of itself.
And this reminds me of, I think it was episode 2, where we talked about how, you need to evolve your business, but don't evolve just to evolve. Evolve your business to keep up with, not trends, but keep up with emerging technologies and things that are going to completely disrupt your industry. So like we talked about Kodak as an example, and we'll go into it again, but you know, it's not about keeping up with trends. So like if you're a barbecue joint and the trend right now is, I don't know, sushi, you're not going to change your barbecue joint to a sushi joint, right? You're going to roll the tide. You're going to keep creating your great barbecue, because sometimes people don't want sushi or they don't like sushi, you know? So try not to, we're saying not to jump on trends, but to evolve.
Evolve your product or your service as you see newer versions and newer ways of doing things that not only bring a better product to your customers, but also make your product more efficient, more ecologically friendly. I will learn to speak one of these days.
Ecologically.
Yeah. Ecologically friendly. You know, do these things that better you, better your customers, better for the environment. You know, these are very good reasons to change and evolve your service and your product.
And kind of on that thought real quick, one way to do that is listen to your customers, right? So if you put out a new menu item and the feedback from your customers is like, man, this would be great, but it's way too salty, maybe change up your recipe a little bit, dial back the salt, and there you go, you got a perfect product, right? So you're not changing your business, you're just listening to the feedback and you're evolving to satisfy both the customer needs and your needs.
And a business will not succeed if there's not a need for it. So I'll give you an example. If you're in a community where, let's say you want to open up a bicycle shop, but there's not really any bicycle paths in the area, there's not a lot of need or desire for, say, you know, mountain biking because you live in a flat area, and so you don't want to open up a mountain bike shop if there's no mountains to bike on. So if that's the passion that you have, you may want to locate your business where there's a need for it, where people are mountain biking, where people are, you know, interested in doing that activity. You know, you move to that area, and owning a business takes a lot of sacrifice. And moving your business might be one of those sacrifices you have to make if you want to have a successful business. But if you can have a successful business, and you can also have a successful life, and you don't have to be tied to one place or one location so that you can have success and fulfillment. Well, let me be clear about that. But let's get back into, you know, this whole David versus Goliath, you know, comparing ourselves to these big corporate giants. Don't compare yourself. That's the simple truth of it. Don't compare yourself to don't compare your business, which you may have been running for the last 2 years, to a business that's been around for 20 years. Don't even compare yourself to where they were at their 2-year mark 18 years ago
or more. Going back to the Disney Walmart example, imagine comparing your business that's 2 years old in 2021 to Walmart, for example, that was founded in 1962. So you're comparing your 2021 business that, by the way, we're still in a pandemic, to a business from 1964 that's 2 years old, where I'm pretty sure they didn't have a pandemic in 1961.
Yeah. They weren't battling with internet marketing.
Right, they weren't battling with internet marketing. You know, the space-time continuum, for lack of a better term. No, but like the time, the culture, the economy is all different. Even today from 5 years ago is so different.
Yeah.
Or today from 15 years ago is so
politics
different.
And regulations, those are just to name a few of the technical variables that are different from literally like 1 year to the next. So you don't want to try to compare yourself, well, I've been in business for 2 years now or 5 years now, and I'm not as successful as this other person was when they were at the 5-year point or 2-year point, wherever you're at.
Even your local competitor down the street. Like if you run a tool shop and 3 streets down there's another tool shop and you've been in business for 2 years and they've been in business for 10 years, don't compare yourself. There's no way to really be like, well, they are doing this and they're making this much money and I'm doing this and making this much money. It's not, you can't compare it because 8 years ago was so much different than today.
Yeah, so like we said, there's a lot of different technical variables that change all the time, and you can't compare yourself for that reason. But the biggest variable is you. The biggest variable of all is you. No two people have the exact same life story. You are as unique as they come. The life you have led has led you here, and you are uniquely qualified to be a success. Every single one of us has a unique formula, a unique journey, if you will, that's going to lead us to success as long as we listen to our intuition, follow our passions, we will find success.
Yep.
Your journey, both past and future, is going to be different than anyone else's journey. You're going to have competitors in business. That's just the way it is.
Yep.
But go ahead.
I was gonna say, and who knows? You, for example, may have a 2-year business that you bootstrapped. Maybe you took out loans to do it, or you're paying off, paying for it with a credit card. And your competitor 2 blocks down, they could have gotten, $1 million check from Uncle Bobo over there. Uncle Bobo, I don't know where that
I want an Uncle Bobo. Give me $1 million check.
Right? To start their business. So there's no way that you can compare. Even if they did bootstrap, they bootstrapped differently than you did.
Yeah, and you never know what someone else's story or journey was. Like Janine says, they could have had some type of family investor or collected an inheritance that got them all their startup capital that they could have ever needed, so that they didn't have to work a part-time job while running their business, because it can be hard.
It can be hard.
So you're going to have competitors in business. That's just the way it is. But let me be clear. Your opponent is not your enemy. We are not on a battlefield. We are not waging war. Okay? And remember, you could potentially merge with another business. There's nothing wrong with merging your business with another business that aligns with your morals and values as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that what you consider that competitor 3 blocks down could potentially,
become a business partner.
Become a business partner. You could merge your business with their business, and now instead of being an entrepreneur or a solo business, now you're in a partnership. And that is an even greater recipe for success. When you have a partner, you have different mindsets, different ways of thinking about things, different experiences, that you have twice as much knowledge to solve potential problems that could arise.
Mm-hmm.
So don't think of somebody as your enemy just because they have a similar business to you and they are currently a competitor. You never know where life might take you.
Mm-hmm.
So learn from those that have become successful in your industry. Model your business after them while simultaneously making your business stand out and be individualized.
And by that, it's not like going and being like, hey, what's your business plan? And following it to a T. Maybe you've gone into their business a couple times, maybe you were a patron, and you love the business, but there's that one thing that always just kind of irked you, and you're like, no, I can do this better. And so that thing that you change, that becomes your special sauce, for lack of a better term. That becomes your special sauce of your business. So you modeled your business after a competitor or after something else, but you tweak one little thing and that can be your driving force.
Yeah, we're not talking about plagiarizing and completely copying somebody else's formula for success, because just because you copy somebody else's formula does not mean you will be a success.
Yep.
And we don't want you to copy somebody else's formula, but there's only so many ways to build a bicycle or skin a cat, whatever. I mean, a bicycle is going to have 2 wheels. That's the definition of bicycle. 2 wheels, a seat, handlebars, some way to power the bike, whether that's pedals. Some of them are now motorized, and some of them have a combination of the system.
Some are even like push scooter type.
But a bicycle is a bicycle. It's gonna have 2 wheels, a seat, and some handlebars. So learn from other people and how they build it. Like, oh, heck, I didn't think about using this type of metal for this part. This would make it more efficient. I could maybe try and do that for mine, and use factors with evolving technologies for your industry. And you're going to learn some of these evolving technologies for your industry based on industry leaders. That's just the way it is.
I keep thinking of social media companies. Think of just how many social media companies there are, right? There's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Clubhouse now. The list is ongoing. But when you think about, like, for example, Facebook was basically modeled after MySpace, if you're young enough to remember that one. Old enough to remember that one. But Facebook was basically modeled after MySpace. Zuckerberg's basically found MySpace and said, I can do this better, and created his own version of it. And eventually there's going to be, people are saying Clubhouse is going to take over MySpace because it's a lot more audio friendly or whatever, right? Each one took the same concept and tweaked it to fit their need.
They made it uniquely their own. So if you're not competing against your competitors, who are you going to compete then? Or compete with then? Yourself. Compete against yourself. You were right. You're so smart.
So smart.
Establish your goals and milestones on a timeline that will force you to stretch yourself without overwhelming yourself. That will create a pattern of growth for you and your business. Now, a really great way to do this is hire yourself a great business coach that will help you sort out what your goals and ambitions are, create a list of milestones that you want to achieve, think of what would realistically be a good timeline to achieve those, and then try to achieve them maybe a little bit sooner. But if you don't succeed at hitting that timeline mark, look at where you've come. Make it a stretch goal. Like, for example, if you think making $100,000 in a year is doable, but it's a little bit of a stretch, say $120,000, and then stretch yourself for that 120. And if you fall a little bit short and you only come up to 110, you've made 10,000 more than what you initially thought would be a good goal. You've exceeded what you thought would have been a good goal. But if you set that goal at the 100,000 and it was just a little bit of a push and you hit 100,000, you're more than likely, or as you get close to that 100,000, you're going to cool it and you're going to back off, and you're only going to just hit that 100,000 mark. You're not going to exceed it. If you feel like 120 would be almost unthinkable for you and your business right now, and you hit 110, you've still won. You still made a great profit margin that year.
Yep.
So you're only competing with yourself. And by doing that and setting up these goals and these milestones, you're able to create a pattern of growth, and you just got to put the focus on you and your business. Stop focusing on these corporate giants. Focus less on the progress of others and more on your business's progress. When you spend all your time focusing on how you can improve your business for your customers, you don't have time to worry about anyone else. Spend time reflecting within on how you can do better each day. After all, when you spend your time looking in a mirror, you don't have time to look out the window.
I like that.
Thanks. And that's going to conclude today's episode. If you would like to follow us on Instagram, you can do so at
Diorio Coaching, DEIORIO Coaching. We're also on LinkedIn
and Facebook at the same @. That's Diorio Coaching, DEIORIO Coaching.
And you can find us online at www.dioriocoaching.com.
So I'm going to leave you with Rodney's rule of the day. If you're not growing, you're dying. It sounds bleak and morbid, but believe me, if your business is not growing, if you're not taking the time to learn and evolve and steadily grow, it doesn't matter how slow the growth is. If you're not growing, somebody's going to come and grow past you.
And kill you.
They're not going to kill you. You're killing yourself by not growing.
Cutting yourself off at the knees.
Growth is a choice. We all make choices. We all have to choose to be better. And I'm not saying that you are not good enough as you are right now, because you are. You need to keep in mind that there's always room for improvement. There's always that room for growth. Look for the growth opportunities in every single day in everything that you do. Because if you are not growing, your business is not growing. And if your business is not growing, your business is dying. With that, have a wonderful day. Work on growth. Don't focus on the corporate giants. Focus on you and how you can help your clients. When you put the focus on your clients and how you can personally grow, you're not going to have enough time to even worry about the other guys. Have a wonderful day.
You got this. Bye.